Right now, businesses in the United States are spending an extra $240 million a year to retest job applicants.
Which is just a staggering number.
It really is. And they're doing this simply because they can no longer trust that a college degree or, a glowing resume actually proves you know how to do the job.
Right, the trust is just gone.
Exactly. That is an enormous amount of money being burned just to answer one single question. Do you actually possess the skills you claim to have?
Yeah, and for over a century, the way we answered that question was pretty much identical across the
Well,
board.
totally.
Yeah.
Whether you were trying to get into college or pass a professional certification or even prove you deserved a promotion, you sat down, you started a timer, and you produced a final product, like an essay or a multiple choice sheet or a coding test.
And we all just kind of collectively agreed that this was the best way to prove what we knew.
But today, we are exploring a massive systemic earthquake that has completely shattered that agreement. We are doing a deep dive into the intersection of generative AI and learning, looking specifically at the so-called assessment crisis.
And our source material for this deep dive is a really fascinating text called Beyond the Crisis: How AI is Reinventing Educational Assessment by Dr. Jonathan H. Westover.
Yes, and our mission today is to figure out whether AI actually broke our education and corporate training systems or, if it just exposed a system that was fundamentally flawed from the start.
I think people will be surprised by the answer to that.
I agree. More importantly, we're going to look at how this completely changes the way you, the listener, will learn and prove your skills in the future. Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand where we're going, we really have to look at the sheer panic of where this started.
Oh, the panic was very real. It really took hold in late 2022. The arrival of ChatGPT felt like an overnight catastrophe for educators and employers everywhere.
I remember it. Everyone was just freaking out.
Completely. Almost instantly, these AI systems were producing perfectly structured essays that were just indistinguishable from human student work.
Wow.
Yeah, and they were solving complex mathematical problem sets. They were generating functional software code that sailed through automated testing platforms without a single hitch.
So the immediate reaction across higher education and corporate learning was basically a frantic scramble to turn back the clock. Like, universities tried to force everyone back into these heavily proctored in-person examination halls.
Right, and they rushed to buy all those AI detection tools to scan every single submission.
Which turned into its own total disaster, because those AI detection tools proved to be wildly unreliable. I mean, they were generating massive amounts of false positives.
Accusing honest people of cheating.
Exactly, which completely destroyed institutional trust.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, they were completely missing the more sophisticated ways people were actually utilizing the AI.
Well, Dr. Westover's text proposes a totally different lens on that early chaos. The core thesis here is that AI didn't actually break assessment. It broke the economics of inadequate assessment.
Okay, that's an interesting way to phrase it. Break that down for us.
To wrap our heads around that, we have to look at how the testing industry defines a quote-unquote good test. They use two concepts: construct validity and authenticity.
Okay.
Construct validity basically asks, does this test actually measure the specific skill it claims to measure? And authenticity asks, does this test mirror the real world?
Right. Does it actually look like the job you'll be doing?
Exactly. And for decades, our traditional tests sacrificed both of those things for the sake of standardization and scalability.
Relying on a timed essay to prove, a subject is like judging someone's driving ability by having them write a 500-word paper about a steering wheel.
Oh, that is perfect.
Right. We only did it because buying everyone a car to take a real driving test was just too expensive.
That analogy captures it perfectly. A multiple choice test is great at measuring your ability to recall facts in a vacuum, but it is terrible at predicting your actual professional performance.
Yeah, because taking a timed essay exam is this artificial constraint you will almost never face in the real working world. I mean, at work, you have access to colleagues, you have the internet, you have time to revise.
Exactly. Those methods were never good measures of deep learning or complex problem solving. They were just cheap. They were incredibly easy to grade at an industrial scale.
So when AI came along and instantly mastered the ability to write a coherent argument or solve a well-defined problem, it didn't destroy a perfect educational system.
Not at all.
It just completely automated our cheapest, most flawed proxy for evaluating human knowledge.
And because our entire educational and corporate infrastructure was built on that cheap proxy, its sudden collapse isn't just some abstract debate for academics.
No, it is tearing through budgets and causing widespread burnout right now. I mean, higher education faculty, according to a 2024 survey in the text, they're spending an average of 4.2 extra hours per course every single week just managing AI-related assessment concerns.
Which is an enormous amount of time stolen directly from mentoring students or actually updating the curriculum.
And the corporate world is feeling an identical squeeze, right? Corporate learning and development budgets are just ballooning.
Yeah, organizations that relied on standard certification exams to verify employee skills are suddenly doubting the integrity of those credentials.
Right, because how do you know if the employee actually knows it or if ChatGPT just took the test for them?
Exactly. So to compensate, they're trying to implement alternative assessments, and that is causing per-learner assessment costs to jump anywhere from 35 to 60%.
Whoa, 60%, that's massive.
It's huge. That $240 million figure you mentioned in the intro regarding hiring costs, that is a direct result of this credential inflation.
Because employers have to spend dramatically more time and money conducting their own bespoke screenings. They just want to avoid hiring mistakes because they don't know if the certification that you're looking at was earned by a human or generated by an algorithm.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, this isn't really a crisis of cheating. It is a crisis of trust and signaling. The fundamental currency of our job market, the credential, is just being devalued.
And the human toll on the people actually taking these tests is massive, too. The text highlights a study showing that 47% of undergraduate students are anxious and genuinely confused about AI policies.
Which is totally understandable.
Yeah, they don't know where the line is between using a helpful tool and committing an academic integrity violation. And that creates a really quiet but profound equity issue.
Oh, absolutely. Privileged students who generally have more social capital and better access to institutional norms, they navigate these ambiguous AI rules much more effectively.
Right. While first-generation students report significantly higher anxiety about accidentally crossing an invisible line and ruining their academic careers.
It's a really stressful environment for them.
But wait, I have to push back here on behalf of the listener. A lot of people are probably thinking, if a student or an employee is outsourcing their work to AI and getting a great result, aren't they just being efficient?
It's a fair question.
Right. I mean, if an AI can do the job in the real world, why does assessing the human even matter anymore? Why not just grade the final output, high-five the AI, and call it a day?
Well, that is the most common defense of relying heavily on AI, but it ignores a really critical mechanism of how the human brain actually acquires expertise.
Okay, tell me more about that.
The text addresses this directly through the concept of cognitive load and building long-term capability. Let's break that down. When you struggle through a complex problem, say debugging code or synthesizing 3 different historical sources, your brain is experiencing high cognitive load.
The struggle is the point.
Exactly. That struggle is literally what forces your brain to build complex neural pathways or mental models.
Yeah.
If you outsource that struggle to an AI, you bypass the cognitive load. You just never build the underlying mental model.
So you get the right answer today, but you are structurally weakening your brain's ability to understand why it's the right answer.
Precisely. You end up with a very surface-level understanding, but you need those deep structural mental models to know when the AI is hallucinating or giving you bad advice.
Yeah, or to innovate beyond what the AI is capable of generating.
Right. If organizations don't assess the human's fundamental capability, they end up with a workforce that can only execute routine tasks when the machine is working perfectly.
Which sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It is. The second a novel, complex situation arises that the AI hasn't been trained on, that employee will be completely paralyzed because they lack the deep, transferable skills to solve it themselves.
Which brings us to the first major fix. Because if the final product, the essay, the block of code, the multiple trace test, is now easily faked by AI, the only logical solution is to assess the human journey.
Right, we have to evaluate the process.
It makes me think of judging a professional chef. Historically, in education, we just ate the cake they baked. We didn't really care how they made it, as long as it tasted good at the end.
Yep, the final product was all that mattered.
But now, because AI can instantly bake a perfect cake, we have to stand in the kitchen with the chef. We need to watch how they measure the flour, how they combine the ingredients, and what they do when the oven suddenly runs too hot.
That shift from product to process is the first major reinvention Dr. Westover identifies. Instead of just grading what you produced at the end, institutions are using technology to evaluate how you approach the task from day one.
Give me an example of what that looks like in practice.
Well, take Purdue University's online writing lab. They shifted to process assessment across 45 online courses. Instead of just handing in a final paper, students had to submit annotated revision histories.
Oh, wow. So they had to show their work.
Exactly. They had to document their drafts and explicitly explain why they made specific changes. And evaluating the process actually made grading faster for the professors because they could clearly see the students' line of thinking.
That makes a lot of sense.
But the real victory was the learning outcome. Documented revision rates increased by 127%, and the final writing quality improved significantly.
Because the test actually incentivized the real work of writing, which is, rewriting and critical thinking rather than just generating text.
Exactly. And the corporate sector is seeing the exact same dynamic. Salesforce completely changed how they train software developers.
Oh, really? What did they do?
They stopped using those multiple-choice code completion tests. Instead, they started assessing the development process itself. They track how learners decompose a complex problem into smaller parts, what their testing strategies look like, and how they debug their own code over time.
That sounds way more like actual software development.
It is, and the results speak for themselves. Employees who went through this process-based assessment showed 34% better code quality in their first 6 months on the job, compared to those who took the old traditional tests.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Tracking a process over several weeks is great for a big project. But sometimes you just need to quickly verify that someone actually knows what they're talking about right then and there.
Right.
And historically, the absolute gold standard for that was the oral exam.
Oh, for sure. Dating all the way back to medieval universities, sitting face-to-face with a panel of experts and defending your knowledge in real time.
Because it has incredible validity, right?
Yeah.
It is almost impossible to fake.
Completely impossible. You have to articulate concepts, apply them to entirely new scenarios on the fly, and defend your reasoning when challenged. But having human faculty conduct one-on-one oral exams for thousands of students or employees is just financially impossible.
Until generative AI voice agents came along and fundamentally altered the economics of the oral exam. The text notes that AI can now conduct structured, highly nuanced oral assessments for under 50 cents per student.
It's just wild to think about.
50 cents. That is practically cheaper than buying the Scantron paper for a multiple choice test.
Yeah, and Georgia State University actually piloted this for their massive introductory statistics courses. Students would complete their problem sets and then hop on a 10-minute audio call with an AI oral examiner to explain their solutions.
Wow, stats is tough too. What did the AI ask them?
It would ask them to justify their methodological choices and interpret the real-world implications of their results. And the pass rates on the subsequent cumulative exams actually went up by 18%.
That is incredible.
Deloitte is doing something similar for their analyst development program. Instead of having analysts write up a lengthy case analysis, they do a 15-minute oral defense with an AI agent that probes their understanding of financial concepts and regulatory frameworks.
And I imagine that saved them a ton of money.
Oh, Deloitte reduced their assessment administration costs by 40%, plus the AI oral exam predicted actual on-the-job performance significantly better than written tests.
Okay, I understand the economic value, and showing your work is undeniably better than multiple choice. But I have to say, an AI grilling you in an oral exam sounds absolutely terrifying for the listener.
It does sound intimidating for sure.
Right. If I'm taking a test, a cold, calculating machine interrogating my answers feels like a recipe for a panic attack. Doesn't this just skyrocket test anxiety?
Well, that assumption makes complete sense, but the data flips it entirely on its head. Research indicates that students actually report lower anxiety with AI examiners than they do with human faculty.
Wait, really? How is that even possible?
Because the AI doesn't judge your inherent worth the way a human might. It doesn't sign frustration. It doesn't cross its arms. It doesn't look disappointed or, glance at its watch if you stumble over your words.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it completely removes the interpersonal power dynamic and the deep-seated performance anxiety that comes from trying to impress a human authority figure. You are just having a conversation with a patient, tireless entity.
Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. Oral exams are fantastic for proving, the facts and the logic. But professional life isn't just about reciting facts in an interview. How do we prove that someone can actually handle messy, real-world human interactions?
Right, because the real world isn't a multiple-choice question.
Exactly. And because if AI can do the oral exam, it can probably simulate the chaos of real life, too.
What's fascinating here is how AI is actually making assessment more human and more authentic through something called AI personas.
Okay, AI personas, what are those?
Yeah. Well, if you want to assess how a nursing student handles a difficult patient, or how a corporate manager handles a defensive employee, you historically had to hire professional actors.
Which sounds very expensive.
It is. Human simulation is incredibly valid, but it routinely costs upwards of $200 an hour. Now, advanced language models can simulate highly realistic stakeholders at a fraction of that cost.
The text highlights an incredible example of this from the Arizona State University nursing program. They have nursing students interact with AI patients.
Yeah, let's paint a picture of what this actually looks like.
Yeah, because these aren't just robotic chatbots reciting a list of symptoms, right? These AI patients are programmed with varying levels of health literacy. They have realistic, volatile emotional responses.
Exactly.
If a nursing student uses too much dense medical jargon, the AI patient gets visibly confused or frustrated. If the student uses a condescending tone, the AI patient gets defensive and puts up authentic barriers to care.
So the students have to practice therapeutic communication on the fly?
Right. And the result? When those students entered real clinical rotations, they had 28% fewer supervisor-reported communication errors with actual human patients.
That is just phenomenal, and IBM is doing the exact same thing for their leadership training. Managers practice having difficult performance conversations with AI direct reports.
Oh, that sounds stressful, but useful.
It is. The AI is programmed to react dynamically based on the manager's approach. If the manager is confrontational, the AI employee shuts down or argues back. If the manager is empathetic, the AI opens up about workflow bottlenecks.
That is so cool.
And IBM found a very strong correlation between how well managers score in the AI simulation and how their actual human employees rate them in 360-degree feedback 6 months later.
I have to pause you there because while I love the idea of an AI giving you a safe space to practice, the text says these simulations are assessing nuanced traits like cultural humility and empathy.
Yes, it does.
That feels incredibly dystopian to me. Can an algorithm truly evaluate genuine human empathy? Or is it just a soulless machine checking boxes looking for polite keywords like, I understand how you feel? I mean, we're letting a computer grade our humanity.
It's a vital philosophical point to linger on because we obviously don't want a machine assigning a score to our souls. But the text explains that advanced natural language processing goes far beyond simple keyword matching.
Okay, so how does it work then?
The AI is not evaluating what is in your heart. It is evaluating your outward behavioral cues. It analyzes your conversation patterns, the framing of your open-ended questions, your pause times to let the patient speak, and how adaptively you change your strategy when the persona exhibits distress.
Okay, so it's not judging your empathy. It's judging the behavioral markers of empathy.
Precisely. It is assessing whether your behavioral responses demonstrate the recognized clinical or professional markers of empathetic communication.
It's judging the behavior, not the feeling. And that focus on behavior ties directly into how these tools are tracking us over the long term, right? Continuous behavioral assessment.
Exactly. We are moving away from the single high-stakes final exam where you just cram all night and forget everything by Tuesday.
Which we've all done.
Oh, countless times. Instead of treating learning as a one-off episodic event, AI allows institutions to accumulate evidence of competency over time.
Yeah.
The University of Michigan's Ross School of Business uses AI tools to continuously analyze how MBA students contribute to team case discussions across the entire semester. It looks at the depth of their peer feedback and how they solve problems collaboratively week after week.
The Microsoft example in the text really highlights the how behind this continuous tracking. For their cloud computing certifications, it's no longer just a knowledge test. The AI tracks your problem-solving approaches and help-seeking behaviors in hands-on labs.
And it's not just looking at your final code right.
Not at all. It is tracking your keystrokes. It is measuring how much time you spent staring at an error message. Did you query the technical documentation? Did you try a brute force fix that failed and then systematically debug line by line?
Wow.
It tracks your journey through dead ends to see if you actually know how to find the answer, which is the real job of a cloud engineer. You have to prove behavioral evidence of your capability, not just isolated correct answers.
So we have all these incredible tools now. Process tracking, incredibly cheap AI oral exams, simulated messy personas, continuous behavioral tracking.
But having the tools is useless if you just drop them on confused students or employees who are already burned out. The final piece of the puzzle here is how organizations actually implement this massive change without completely shattering trust.
Yeah, this raises an important question about organizational change. The text emphasizes that procedural justice, which is basically the perceived fairness of the change, matters just as much as the technological outcome.
People need to understand exactly why these changes are happening.
Absolutely. If an organization just unleashes continuous AI behavioral tracking on people without a clear explanation, it doesn't feel like an assessment. It feels like dystopian surveillance.
Transparency is everything.
Yeah.
The Stanford D School handled this brilliantly. Before they rolled out their assessment redesign, they held extensive student forums.
Communication is key.
Right. They created explicit guidebooks on acceptable AI use. They literally sat down and taught the students how to understand the new assessments. As a result, 89% of the students understood exactly why the change was happening, and academic integrity concerns actually decreased.
PricewaterhouseCoopers saw the exact same success in the corporate sphere. When PwC redesigned their professional development assessments, they didn't just send out a memo, they treated it as a massive organizational transformation.
What do they do differently?
They ran communication campaigns, set up feedback loops, and provided resources to actually help employees succeed in the new format. Programs that utilized this robust communication saw 60% higher learner satisfaction and 40% better completion rates.
It really comes down to shifting the entire culture of testing, moving away from just sorting and ranking people, which the text calls assessment of learning, and moving toward actually helping people grow, which is assessment for learning.
That is the most profound cultural shift AI enables. Look at the Cleveland Clinic. They replaced one-time high-stakes medical certifications with ongoing AI-enhanced clinical scenarios.
Oh, that's incredible.
Their doctors are continuously practicing and getting personalized feedback on their diagnostic reasoning. It's about maintaining competency over time and learning from mistakes in a safe environment, rather than cramming to prove you're an expert once every 5 years.
And it actually worked.
Yes, the result of that shift was higher adherence to evidence-based practice and fewer adverse patient outcomes.
So what does this all mean? When we look back at our original mission for this deep dive, it is clear that AI didn't destroy assessment. It democratized it.
Completely.
It took the absolute best, most authentic forms of evaluation, process portfolios, oral defenses, realistic simulations, methods that used to be a luxury reserved for tiny, elite classrooms or massively expensive training programs, and it made them economically feasible for everyone at scale.
The era of the easily cheated multiple-choice proxy test is finally over.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, and that should be incredibly empowering for the learner. It means your capabilities will be judged on your authentic skills, your problem-solving behaviors, and your development over time, rather than your ability to memorize facts or hack a standardized test.
The focus shifts entirely to practicing for the messy reality of the real world, rather than just performing for the exam.
Exactly.
Which brings it directly back to you, the listener. Think about how you are learning today, right now, in your own life or career. Are you still just aiming to produce the final product as quickly as possible? Or are you taking the time to document your process, defend your reasoning, and practice in ways that actually mirror the chaos of your profession?
It's an important thing to reflect on.
Because the tools to evaluate the real, authentic you are already here. But I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought that builds on everything we've discussed today. If AI becomes so advanced that it can flawlessly simulate every complex, messy human scenario we might ever face at work, the angry client, the complex medical diagnosis, the highly nuanced leadership challenge, at what point does the AI's simulation become the actual job? And we become the ones perpetually taking the test just to keep up with the AI. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and remember, the next time you face a test, make sure it's measuring your driving, not just asking you to describe the steering wheel.